schoolmates! Kamusta po ang lahat? It has been a while since tayo po ay nakapagtsikahan at nakapag-record ng sintalakayan. So despite sa kabila ang deadlines at requirements, dahil few weeks from now, we're going to officially end our second semester.
Of course, before tayo tuluyang magkumustahan, magpapakilala muna kami. Siyempre, hindi pwedeng hindi, no? Kidding aside, magandang buhay. Ako nga pala si Joey, isa sa mga makakatsikahan nyo sa mga usapin tungkol sa ating sintang paaralan. And with me here today, walang iba, fresh na fresh and beautiful inside and out, partner.
Nakaka-pressure naman, partner. Pero salamat naman ho. And of course, with Sir Joey, I am Kaya at handog namin sa inyo ang programang hindi lang kayo bubusugin at pupunuin ng kaalaman tungkol sa sintang paaralan. Makakasama nyo rin ho kaming himay-himayin ang mga impormasyong siguradong kapupulutan ng aral, mapaloob man o mapalabas ng sintang paaralan. Ito ang...
Sintalakayan, usapan, talastasan at chikahan sa sintang paaralan.
Kamusta ka naman, partner? Parang pagod na pagod ka today.
Oo, sobrang daming ganap ngayong buwan ng June, 'no, especially because meron tayong sine-celebrate.
Yes. Importanteng sine-celebrate natin ngayong buwan. At alam mo ba, Sir Joey, very dear to my heart itong pag-uusapan natin ngayon. Dahil bukod sa malapit sa aking puso, yung opisinang nag-organize nito, kaugnay na rin ito ng selebrasyong pinagdidiwang natin sa buwan na ito. So before anything else, I would like to greet everyone, my students, our faculty members, at lahat ng nakikinig sa Sentalakayan ngayon. Ang ating mga kapatid mula sa queer community, Happy Pride Month to
Happy Pride
everyone.
Month, and yes, correct ka diyan, partner, Happy Pride Month sa lahat. Kaya naman bilang nabanggit mo na rin naman, to be honest, looking forward ako ngayon sa mapag-uusapan natin dahil, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, we will dig in deeper as we talk about the significance of creating safe spaces inside and outside our university.
That's true, partner, since one of the issues talaga ngayon na gusto nating i-address ay nakaugnay dito, no? Specifically, yun ngang online gender-based violence and harassment cases. Alam mo, partner, I'm teaching third year broadcast communication students now ng gender and the media subjects and I have seen na halos karamihan sa mga estudyante ko is not very much aware with the laws that are actually supposedly protecting them against discrimination, against harassment. So maganda talaga na bukod sa meron tayong mga subjects sa eskwelahan na nagfa-familiarize sa kanila sa ganitong mga topic, ay mayroon tayong mga ganitong klase ng discussions, no? At yun nga, mahirap kasi dito, our students specifically ay hindi alam kung saan o sino yung lalapitan nila, lalo pa kapag nakaka-experience sila ng ganito sa buhay nila.
Yes, kaya naman very interesting ang usapan natin ngayon dahil, sa kaalaman na maibabahagi, 'no. Ano ba yung dapat gawin? Saan ba dapat lumapit?
Yes.
Kailan ba mako-consider na gender-based violence at harassment ang mga nangyayari sa ating mga kasama? Pero siyempre hindi puwedeng tayo lang. Maganda naman na marinig natin talaga ang nilalaman nito lalo na para sa kaalaman ng lahat. So partner, meron ng batas about safe spaces. Sa tingin ko maganda din na maintindihan natin ito sa tulong ng isang eksperto sa
Yan,
batas.
kasi 'di ba yung mga batas-batas na yan medyo minsan mahirap talagang ma-absorb lalo pa if you're not very familiar with the language. So maganda ngayon na ililimanize natin ito para sa ating mga estudyante. So without further ado, I am pleased to introduce to you ang makakasama natin at makakatulong na ipaliwanag ang mga mahahalagang bagay patungkol sa Safe Spaces Act at online gender-based violence and harassment. Let us all welcome. She's an attorney at law, intellectual property management consultant, certified franchise executive, director of the Carl Balita Institute, and of course, a one proud member of the queer community, none other than Attorney Laika Balita. Yay!
Good
Welcome,
afternoon.
Attorney! Kamusta naman po ang biyahe pa PUP?
Okay naman, di naman traffic, thank
Ay,
you.
magandang balita yun, Joey, kung hindi traffic, 'di ba? So, attorney, hindi na ako magpapaligoy-ligoy pa. Didiretso na agad ako sa ating first question. Itong first question namin medyo very general because we want to provide our viewers and our listeners a very laymanized definition of the Safe Spaces Act. So, can you introduce to us RA 11313, or also known as Safe Spaces Act? What are the general things that we need to know about this act?
Okay, so the Safe Spaces Act, it's also known as the Bastos Law,
Mhm.
right? So the good thing about the Safe Spaces Act is it applies to everyone, meaning it protects everyone and anyone can be the perpetrator. The misconception ngayon is when we talk about sexual harassment, it's usually men harassing women. But the reality is, it's different genders, different genders of victims, different genders of perpetrators of all ages. So the Safe Spaces Act, it applies not just to public spaces but also online instances of sexual harassment.
Okay, so attorney, nabanggit mo na, meron tayong online, meron tayong offline. So, ano ba yung definition kapag sinabi natin na online and ano yung definition 'pag sinabi nating offline? Is it only limited to public spaces or can this also happen inside the classroom or inside the workplace?
Okay, so the definition of public spaces under the law is basically a place that the public can access. So schools are actually specifically enumerated there. So that's schools, the mall, even Grab, angkas, etc. Jeepneys, basically public spaces accessible to anyone from the public. And when we talk about online, of course, it uses the internet. It uses communication devices. So yeah.
So, very malawak pala talaga 'no, kapag sinabi nating online spaces, attorney kasama dito Messenger talaga, WhatsApp, lahat, TikTok.
Online
Yeah,
spaces talaga.
whether that's private or you post something on public for everyone to see.
Mhm. So, attorney, you also mentioned na everyone is protected by the law. So, this includes any gender, any gender identity.
Yeah, regardless of your SOGI, you're protected, and also you can also be the perpetrator. So there's no, distinction na, oh, it's just men harassing women, or you have to be someone of a higher position before you can harass someone of a lower position. Because the older law is the anti-sexual harassment law. It applies in the workplace and the school setting. The rule is you have to have some sort of ascendancy. So it applies to employers harassing employees, teachers harassing students. What the Safe Spaces Act did is, even if you're on the same level or that person is sort of subordinate to you, the law applies. So you can be protected as a teacher, you're protected from harassment by your students. Or if you're a principal, you're protected by harassment from someone like your usual teacher. So yun.
Yeah. So attorney, just to emphasize, no, sa sexual harassment law, kailangan na merong authority yung harasser before it can be considered harassment. So sa Safe Spaces Act ay binubura na yung ganong klaseng qualification. So anyone
Yes.
can be a victim
Yeah.
of gender-based violence, and everyone can also be a harasser.
Yep.
Parang ganon. Wow.
Okay, medyo ano yun 'no, medyo it's a revelation, it's a revelation. Kasi what generally people know is that you have to be, in power or you have to have authority
Yes.
before you commit such act. Pero hindi pala. Na I think tama lang na na-amend siya kasi importanteng makita natin na hindi lang sa mga ganitong klase ng sitwasyon nag-e-exist ang harassment. Puwede rin talaga siyang, from student to teacher, teacher sa kapwa mo teacher, student sa kapwa mo estudyante. So maganda na alam natin na protektado tayo. Tapos attorney, just to add, you mentioned na itong safe spaces ay may particular stipulation on gender-based violence and harassment. Tama ba? So is it very clear or well-defined doon sa batas ano ang definition ng gender?
Yeah, there's actually a definition of gender. There's also a definition of gender identity. And the term they use in the law is actually gender-based sexual harassment. So in the law, you can actually see na meron dong sexist, homophobic, transphobic, misogynistic remarks. Those are considered sexual harassment under Safe Spaces Act. So it includes, for the first time, we actually have recognition of trans people, of the LGBT community, that they can be victims. And when you use homophobic, transphobic, sexist remarks, you're actually in violation of the law.
Actually, maganda 'to, Sir Joey 'no, kasi yun nga, yung mga lalo pa ngayon with my students, they're not very aware that this law, has been passed or has been existing for so many years. So, hindi nila ngayon alam kanino talaga lalapit kapag meron silang, na-receive na misogynistic or homophobic remarks. Hindi nila alam kanino lalapit, hindi nila alam sino ang kakausapin, hindi nila alam na nag-e-exist pala ito.
Yes.
No, kaya maganda talaga na napag-uusapan natin siya ngayon. Tapos attorney, I'm sure my students would be very much not excited. Ayaw naman nating gamitin yung term na yun, but very much willing to learn. When we say gender-based violence and harassment, can you define it more clearly and can you like give more particular examples?
Okay, so there are two sort of categories. We have the one in public spaces and we have online. But the general like theme is they're uninvited, meaning you didn't ask for it, and they're unwanted, meaning you don't want it. These are acts or words that threaten your personal safety, safe spaces, right? Your sense of personal safety. So there's a really long enumeration in the law. It includes, like I mentioned earlier, sexist, homophobic, transphobic remarks, also catcalling, wolf whistling, or when they flash their private parts, or when they stalk you, they keep messaging you, cyber stalking. They send you inappropriate messages, or all these things. They leak your photos, all those examples. So there's a very long list. It's very helpful because a lot of people don't know na when you're walking down the street and someone catcalls you, that's actually in violation of the law, and you're actually protected from that. It's not normal to do that, and it's not okay.
So, what I get from that is that as long as the person being harassed feels na siya ay threatened or hindi niya gusto yung ginawang remark, pwede niyang gamitin yung Safe Spaces Act para ireklamo yung gumawa nun sa kanya.
Yeah, and actually in the law, it provides that regardless of the intent of the person. So it's not a defense to say na, oh, I didn't mean to. I was just saying she looked like this. No, I didn't intend to sexually harass someone. But the thing is, it was unwanted. It was uninvited. You're making a sexual comment about someone. So in that case, that's considered gender-based sexual harassment.
So, attorney, you mentioned that this also applies online. So, ibig sabihin, halimbawa, nag-comment si someone sa profile picture ni someone
Yes.
na hindi naman niya gusto yung ganitong klase ng compliment or backhanded compliment. Does it also fall under Safe Spaces Act if I feel like I was harassed?
Yeah, and I think there's a line for that naman. Hindi naman lahat ng compliments it's considered sexual harassment because there are appropriate ways of complimenting someone without having to objectify them. So, it's not every time someone compliments you, it's already sexual harassment. It's very clear, I think. We have norms that are very clear in society na. You can say, oh, nice pic or whatever, but when you start making inappropriate comments about someone's body, when you start making homophobic remarks, transphobic remarks, that's when it falls under, online gender-based sexual harassment.
Attorney, fokusan lang natin ng kaunti yung online gender-based violence kasi I think most of our students right now are online.
Yes.
They are digital nomads. Or they live digitally. So, right now, have we seen any patterns or I don't want to call it trends, but patterns sa mga ganitong klase ng mga cases na nafa-file in line with Safe Spaces Act?
The problem with sexual harassment is there's really no set pattern. It's usually like the most unpredictable, unexpected people who are doing this to the most unexpected people. So we can't always say, oh, it's usually teachers harassing students or guys harassing girls. It's not really like that. It's so unpredictable, and so many people are victims of this. But the common trend, if you could call it a trend, is the victims are usually those in marginalized or sort of the more vulnerable communities. So that's younger children. That includes younger boys. You would be surprised at how many young boys are victims of this. And of course, the LGBT community, they're usually targets of homophobic, transphobic remarks, and women, of course. But that doesn't mean men, like adult men, are not victims. But the trend is just the most vulnerable parts of society, especially the younger children. They're usually the victims of online sexual harassment.
How do we usually approach these kinds of harassment? Because when it's happening on ground or offline, it's easier to react, right? Halimbawa, well, hindi naman easier, pero the space would allow you to react in such a way na makakapag-express ka agad ng galit o di kaya naman ay makakapag-express ka agad ng lungkot. But with online kasi, it's very mediated eh. So how do we usually approach online gender-based violence?
So the difficulty with online gender-based sexual harassment is it's so easy to commit because it's online. You can just create an anonymous account and start harassing someone. So the reality is it's very difficult to implement. And we have, a lot of measures taken by websites, by game developers to ban, to suspend, have these reporting mechanisms. But the reality is it's very hard to enforce. So actually, the interesting thing about the law is the penalty for public spaces sexual harassment is a lot lower than online sexual harassment. So in the public space, the first offense is usually just community service up to a few months on your second, third offense. But when we're talking about online, it's 6 months to 6 years agad. And that's because it's so easy to commit. and it's easier to get away with. So what legally what you're supposed to do is you go to the PNP anti-cybercrime group, and that's where you report it. And if the person who's doing it is identifiable, it's gonna be a lot easier to sort of, catch that person, make them face the penalty. But the reality is it's usually anonymous accounts eh. But when you know the person who's harassing you, and this happens a lot with students, yung mga classmate nila, boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, in that case, it's a lot easier. You just go to the PNP anti-cybercrime group. There's usually an anti-sexual harassment desk or the women's desk, for that matter. And yeah, that's where they can help you out with how to resolve what to do with that harassment case.
Attorney, pwede bang gawing excuse ng isang tao, for example, meron siyang comment and offend yung isang tao sa comment niya, pero pwede niyang sabihin na, ay, wait, hindi ko alam na harassment na pala to. Does that excuse him of potential liability, for example, sa batas?
No, it doesn't, because regardless of your intention, regardless of your intention to whether or not you want to sexually harass someone, what you did was unwanted, uninvited, and it threatened someone's sense of security, privacy, and safety. So if you have some examples, you can actually kind of dissect them, but you can usually see it from what comment they made, if that was appropriate or inappropriate. Let's say you see a photo of a literal child, someone a lot younger than you, and you start commenting about their body because they're posting, I don't know, they're in the beach or something. That's very inappropriate. No, but if you just say, "Oh, I like your oh wow, have fun on your vacation," it's really a case to case basis, but you can tell if a comment is appropriate or not based on the situation itself.
So, attorney, I think nailatag na natin, no, yung definition ng Safe Spaces Act. Alam na din ng mga schoolmates natin ngayon, no, kung saan ba magfa-file ng cases, lalo pa if they experience, and hopefully they do not experience something like that in their lifetime. Pero siguro, attorney, let's also discuss yung effectivity ng batas, no. Ito kasi importante din para alam ng mga schoolmates natin kung gaano ba ka-effective yung batas sa pagprotekta sa kanila. I've recently attended a seminar last Women's Month. And a non-government organization discussed that most of the cases filed against Safe Spaces Act, particularly with online gender-based violence, have not been that successful. Because for one, hindi nga madaling mahanap yung perpetrator. Or secondly, it's not easy to define ano ba yung harassment sa ganitong klase ng spaces. So when we are faced with these kinds of struggles, attorney, is there another step forward so that we can make sure that our students and ourselves are protected from these kinds of harassment?
So when we were talking about students, the law actually provides for some mechanisms that schools are required to have. So they're supposed to have a committee on decorum and investigation when it comes to sexual harassment cases, and they're required to resolve it within 10 days. So the problem really is in the implementation, right? And the communication, because a lot of cases of online sexual harassment, people don't actually know that it's sexual harassment more often than not. So I think the step really that we should take, especially as schools, is a lot of it is in communication, right? The problem is students don't understand the law because the law is not written for the people who are supposed to benefit from these laws. You give this to a senior high student, you give this entire law to someone in college, or you give it to someone just without a college degree or high school degree, they won't understand it. So what we're supposed to do in the first place is make sure that these laws are accessible. So that's really my advocacy, because as a lawyer, the laws are written in a way that doesn't benefit the people they intend to benefit. But if we simplify it, we dissect it and say, hey, you're gonna see in the law, they're gonna use the term catcalling. But with a regular person who doesn't usually speak English, would they understand what you mean? Give some examples, make it more accessible to the people. So when they know, ako kinakatcall mo ako, bawal yan. I can report you to this. And then people who aren't really aware na, bawal pala yun. At least we kind of prevent it instead of filing a case na you have to proceed to that level already. But when it comes to the implementation, that's really the difficult part. You can make the nicest law, but the implementation is always going to be dependent on the executive department. And when it comes to determining anonymous online sexual harassers, I think what we have right now with our government is not very what's the what's the right word to use, not very effective, it's not very fast. So I guess what we could do is communicate first that about these laws and what they can do and what's not allowed, what is allowed, so that people can actually understand, the students can actually understand, na, hey, bawal yung ginagawa mo. I'm protected by the law. I hope that in a way answers the question.
So, madami pala tayong gagawin, Sir Ju. Madami pa tayong kailangang gawin talaga, lalo pa sa pag-limanize talaga ng batas. I think I understand what attorney is saying. Kasi nakikita ko ito sa mga estudyante natin na kapag sinasabi mo sa kanila na yung mga ganitong klase ng pangyayari ay harassment na o di kaya naman ay discrimination, na nagugulat sila. Na parang, ha? Totoo? Parang una sa lahat, um, parang okay lang naman sa akin na ginanon nila ako ma'am or sir or whatever. Pero 'pag nabasa nila yung batas at naintindihan na nila na hindi dapat sila ginaganito, doon sila nagkakaroon bigla ng, awakening or understanding na, okay, dapat pala ginawan ko 'to ng paraan para at least hindi rin ito mangyayari sa iba ko pang mga kaklase, iba ko pang mga kasama 'no. So grabe ha, we've come a long way, Sir Joey. Ang dami kong nakuha, ang dami kong natutunan at sana pati rin yung mga nakikinig sa atin ngayon ay maraming natutunan sa ating episode ng Sintalakayan.
Yes, actually kahit ako rin marami akong natutunan kaya excited ako ngayon na i-relate siya sa ating sintang paaralan and agad-agad 'no, ako advocate na ako ng safe space. Actually hindi lang ako, dapat lahat tayo na advocate ng Safe Spaces Act.
Yes, alam ko marami ka pang gustong i-discuss at si Attorney Laika din marami pang gustong i-share as we intend to really create a safer space inside PUP, pati na rin sa campuses natin, hindi lang dito sa Santa Mesa. Kaya when we get back, we will try to dissect and understand different cases we've heard through your good office, Sir Joey, Gender and Development Office, to better address itong ang gender-based violence and harassment offline man or online dito sa ating sintang paaralan.
Yes, kaya naman can't wait for this, Attorney Laika, wag mo na kayong bibitiwa kasi kailangan pa nating, pag-usapan 'to at, kailangan pa po namin kayo to better understand and better strategize sa mga susunod na magiging proyekto ng aming opisina. So for now, please don't forget to like and follow us on our official BUP Spotify account at PUP Scholar Radio para siguradong updated ka sa mga, susunod nating tsikahan. Siguradong may kapupulutang aral.
Kita-kits sa susunod na episode. Muli ito ang Sintang
Sintang
Lakayan.
Lakayan.
Usapan, talastasan at chikahan sa Sintang Paaralan.